Greetings, Lumen students. This is a video for little students to tell them about our next reading assignment. We're ready to begin a new set of books together. I have a couple of fun choices for you. We're going to be getting into some fantasy novels because we're going to be talking about setting. And fantasy novels are perfect for different, unique, and magical settings. They are unlike any other kind of book in that they don't need to be true to the environments that is around us. They can create their own setting. And that's going to be something fun that we're going to work on over this next few weeks as we move into our Unit 4. Your first choice, students, is a book called Gregor the Overlander. It's by Suzanne Collins. She's the author of The Hunger Games. She wrote this series before she wrote The Hunger Games, and it's my favorite of all her books. Gregor the Overlander tells the story of an 11-year-old boy who falls through a grate in his laundry room and ends up in an underground world. There's a whole civilization that is under the earth. People have gone below the surface and carved out a life for themselves, and they've been living there for generations. Down in this underground world, there are giant bats that people fly. They ride on like they're airplanes. They're their friends. There are giant rats that the people battle. There are bugs that are neutral, not on one side or the other, but end up joining the fight on the side of the humans, the Underlanders. There are spiders, giant spiders. The critters below the earth are massive and very threatening. It's a harsh environment to live in. And Gregor, in fact, is the warrior that has been prophesied about, who is supposed to come and save the day, right? I want to just read you a little bit about when he first meets the group in the arena. Okay, Gregor is traveling with his little baby sister, whose name is Boots. Okay. All right, here we go. Really, I need to go back up right now, he said to Vicus. The old man was still examining him closely. It is simple to fall down, but the going up requires much giving. What do you mean? Asked Gregor, his throat tightening. He means you cannot go home, said Lexa flatly. You must stay with us in the Underland. No, thank you, said Gregor. I mean, you're all great, but I've got stuff to do upstairs. Thanks again. Nice meeting you. Come on, Boots. Gregor scooped up his sister and headed for the arched opening that the roaches had left by. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Lexa raise her hand. For a moment, he thought she was waving goodbye to him. But that couldn't be right. Lexa wasn't friendly enough to wave. If that's not a wave, then it's a signal, he muttered to Boots, and he bolted for the doorway. He might have made it if he hadn't been hauling Boots, but he couldn't really run with her in his arms. 10 yards from the exit, the first bat swept in front of him, knocking him flat on his back on the ground. His body cushioned Boots' fall, and she immediately sat up on his stomach to enjoy the show. Every bat in the arena had dived for them. They flew in a tight circle around Gregor and Boots, locking them in a prison of wings and fur. Each one had a rider as pale and silver-haired as Lexa. Despite the close proximity and speed of the bats, none of the people had any trouble staying mounted. In fact, only a few bothered to hold on at all. One cocky-looking guy on a glossy black bat actually lay down in a reclining position, propping up his head with one hand. The riders couldn't take their eyes off of the captives. As they flashed by, Gregor could see their expressions, ranging from amusement to outright hostility. Boots bounced on his stomach and clapped her tiny hands. Bats! 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 Oh, at least someone's enjoying this, thought Gregor. Well, he wasn't allowed to go home yet, and won't be allowed to go home. Well, I won't give away the ending. But you need to read Gregor the Overlander if you like a lot of action, a lot of adventure, a wonderful family relationship, so much fun and humor, just everything. This book has it all. Gregor the Overlander. Another wonderful fantasy with an incredible magical world is Ella Enchanted. This book is awesome. And it's the story of Cinderella, but with a twist. She is blessed with the curse of obedience, and that she has to obey every command. A fairy has given her this gift at her birth, and so if you tell her go pick up the paper, she has to do it. She's compelled. She gets up. She tries to fight it. She doesn't want to. No. But in the end, she has to pick up the paper. It's and it leads to all kinds of problems you can imagine with stepsisters who are very cruel to her and make her give them things and do chores and all kinds of stuff, and even endangers the prince. And there's giants in the book, there's elves, fairies, there's all kinds of wonderful things and places that she goes and sees. So you're going to want to read this one. Let's see. Okay, I don't know which one I want to read you. The size of things began to grow shortly after we started out on the third morning. In the past, objects far away had always appeared smaller than objects close by, but now the old rule stood on its head. The trees near us were dwarfed by the trees in the distance ahead. At 10 o'clock, I saw a pumpkin as wide as I was tall. At 11, we passed a pumpkin as big as a carriage. At noon, we saw a giant. He was building a stone wall out of boulders. It was already twice my height, and I shuddered to think of the livestock it would pen. When the giant saw us, he trumpeted his pleasure. "Uyagik!" he called, dropping a rock and thundering toward us, his mouth opened wide in a huge smile of welcome. Our horse reared in fright, and I struggled to keep my seat till the giant reached down and touched the beast gently on his muzzle. He quieted instantly and even nuzzled against the giant's thigh. "Ayup ai ah oop ee," I said. It meant hello in his language. "We've come to attend the wedding of Uaxi's daughter," I added in Kyrian. "But are we too late?" "No, you're just in time. I'll lead you there." The farm was 2 hours away. Kupaduk, the giant, strolled next to our horse. "Is Uaxi expecting you?" he asked. "No," I answered. "Will she mind?" "Mind! She won't be able to thank you enough for coming. Giants love strangers," he paused, "and friends too. Lots of friends and strangers will be there." So they're off to the land of the giants to attend a wedding. And there's much more. So if you like, again, action, adventure, an amazing heroine, little romance thrown in there, you're going to love that book. The final choice is Fablehaven by Brandon Mull. If you have read this, I'd love you to choose something else. But if you haven't, you have to try Fablehaven. It is the story of Kendra and Seth, who go to their grandfather's only to find out that he is a caretaker for a magical preserve where lots of magical creatures are sheltered and kept from human eyes and are safe. Well, safe is a loose word because they're in danger, and Seth and Kendra have to do something to help. Again, it's just a wonderful Let's see. A wonderful story, and you're going to get just a taste of it here. Seth looked over his shoulder. Beside the fairies fluttering about, the garden looked still. Grandpa and Dale were long gone. Lena was in the house dusting. Kendra was doing whatever boring things kept her occupied. He had his emergency kit in hand, along with a few strategic additions. Operation Sea Cool Monsters was about to begin. He hesitantly stepped off the edge of the lawn into the woods, half expecting werewolves to leap out at him. There were a few fairies up ahead, not as many as in the garden. Otherwise, things looked pretty much the same. He marched forward, setting a brisk pace. "Where do you think you're going?" Seth whirled. Kendra was approaching from the garden. He walked back to meet her at the edge of the lawn. "I want to see what's really at the pond, those naiad thingies and stuff." "How brain damaged are you? Didn't you hear a word Grandpa told us yesterday?" "I'm going to be careful. I won't go near the water." "You could get killed. No, I mean really killed, not bitten by a tick. Grandpa made those rules for a reason." "Adults always underestimate kids," Seth said. "They get all protective because they think we're babies. Think about it. Mom used to complain all the time about me playing in the street, but I always did it. What happened? Nothing. I paid attention. I stayed out of the way when a car came. This is so different. Grandpa goes all over the place." Kendra clenched her hands into fists. "Grandpa knows the places to avoid. You don't even know what you're dealing with." Well, Seth is a daredevil and not always the brightest. He gets himself into lots of scrapes for his disobedience and learns a few lessons along the way. Not before having lots of dangerous adventures. So that's another book that you can choose from. I'd like you students to choose one of these, find it at the library or order it. Fablehaven, Ella Enchanted, or Gregor the Overlander. Choose one you haven't read before. And I want you to pay careful attention to the settings of each of these books and stories as you read, okay? Pay attention to where they're at, what they're seeing, what they're hearing, what they're smelling even. The author will use all your senses in describing the settings of these very interesting and magical places. So that's your reading assignment for this next unit. And we'll talk a little bit more about your writing assignment as well as fun history research that you get to do. So stay tuned. But for now, the only thing I need you to work on is just grabbing one of these books and starting to read. So we'll catch you next week. Thank you for joining us.